Hi, I'm Shekhar Gupta, and like anybody else who does writing for a living, I too have my kinks, but let me tell you, they are quite harmless. One is to take my shoes off or shoes or chappals off. In fact, in my newsroom, they always watch. They tell me they watch if I've got my shoes on or not, because if I've got my shoes on for too late, they think I'm going to flunk my deadline. If I take them off early enough, they feel comforted. And the second, I like to take short breaks, and I like to be with people. I'm a gregarious person. Unlike most others who like to shut themselves off from the world by writing, I leave my door open. I go out a lot in the middle, and I need people around me. If there are no people around me, I find it tough to write. That's why maybe sometimes I write on a flight, because I just get the sense that there are people around me. There are two answers to this question. Number one, the Congress party, number one, nationally. Nationally, this time we have seen the dynasties in decline. Across the board, all over the country, dynasties are in decline at this moment. Even in Bombay, where we sit, the Thakre dynasty, the Pawar dynasty is in decline. In Punjab, the Badal dynasty is in trouble. In Kashmir, the Abdullah dynasty is more likely to lose power now. Mulayam Singh Yadav's dynasty is weakened. Lalu's dynasty is out of power. So most dynasties in the country right now are in bad odor, and that applies to the Congress party's leading dynasty as well. Having said that, however, I see very little prospect of any change in the Congress party. I think Congress party will stick with the dynasty. That will not change. The Congress party's only hope will be if the dynasty changes its own method and approach to politics and power. When you go to the elections, you offer a product to the voter. And in this case, a party was going to elections after being in power for 10 years. What was that product? That product was Rahul. Was Rahul praising that government over the past 10 years? No. In fact, over the past 10 years, he'd been telling people of India how miserable we were, how poor we were, how downtrodden, how governance had failed all this while. So, in fact, he was working against his own mother brand, which is the Congress party. And that caused a big contradiction, and that caused a complete suspicion in the mind of many voters. Well, anticipating India, I would say, is a bit of a pompous title. Because India is so complex, things change so fast that anybody who claims that I will anticipate what is going to happen is bound to be shown up soon enough. That's why it was best to do this with 20 by 20 hindsight. This is a selection of my columns that I've written over the years as Indian politics has changed. They've been re-edited, but they've not been updated in the sense of changing any views or anything. And these are columns which I think did anticipate accurately how India's politics was going to change. So this evidence of that lies in this. These are not predictive. Maybe they were predictive when they were written, but they were open for public scrutiny. Now they've been put together with a very long introduction, which is very personalized. And I mentioned many stories about many politicians who I love, frankly. I love politics and I love politicians, and I greatly resented the mood in 2010-11. Which was turning to be very anti-politician, because without politicians there can't be democracy. Without democracy you can't have governance, and without democratic governance you can't keep a diverse society like India together. Obviously I vote for somebody, everybody votes for somebody. Chief Justice of India can vote, President of India votes. So let's not go by those preferences. I think just as a news story, today Narendra Modi is a much bigger news story. But the pity is most of the media is not covering him as a news story. Most of the media is today not covering him as a public leader or a prime minister. Most of the media is now covering him as a celebrity, as a star. And I do think it will change, but it's an unhealthy trend. I think as a journalist, as a political journalist, he's a fascinating story because he's totally self-made. He had no privilege. He also came from outside. He rose to power in a state which is not even one of India's preeminent states politically, because it's of the same size as, say, Rajasthan, a little bit bigger than Odisha. It's not like UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal or Maharashtra. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier, which are the big states. So from there to come up like this, given his handicap in a way of English language, which could stop your growth south of the Vindhyas or say east of Kanpur, he's done it very well, and I think he's a fascinating story. He's also quite young by Indian standards, so he's going to be around for a very long time. First of all, I have very good colleagues who helped me select what was relevant and what might be of interest. And they also helped me edit this and update this because many things have changed since then. But more importantly, for me, it is important that I stay a reporter. So even if I become a thoughter, or as we call it, or a columnist or a commentator now, I draw everything from my reporting experience. And it's not just from my past reporting experience. I don't want to cease to be a reporter. I'm still a reporter. And it's because I still want to keep experiencing what is changing. I meet a lot of people in politics, public life, bureaucracy. I've never ceased to be a reporter. And as long as I remain a journalist, I will not stop reporting. In fact, it's for this reason that I started 2 more series recently. One is Writing from the Wall, which is basically reports, long reports of impressions as you travel through the Indian countryside to see what is changing. And it was in the process of writing these, then we found that India was becoming aspirational, that the youth was rising, that states were acquiring more power, that people were no longer blindly voting for dynasty, that we were now entering a post-ideological, I don't owe nobody anything kind of phase. And that reflected in this election. And another series that I've started is First Person Second Draft, because you said about having been a reporter in the past, a very active reporter in the past. I find that there's a great deal of fascination now for history that took place before Google, if I may put it lightly. We are now in the 30th year of Operation Blue Star. 1984, which I think was the most important year in India's history. Operation Blue Star, the death of Bhindranwale, the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, India going to Siachen Glacier and occupying it, the riots against Sikhs after Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, rise of Rajiv Gandhi to power, and the Bhopal gas tragedy. I do not believe in my time as a reporter there's been a year like that, and I find there's a great fascination for that year. And I wrote a 4-part series called First Person Second Draft on it, which has been read a lot. In fact, I'm retweeting it these days because 1984 is back in fashion. And I did something like this on Sri Lanka. So basically pick up my old reporting experience and memories and stuff from my scrapbook and look at what has changed since then and draw some lessons. So it is commentary as well as reportage, and I really love it. My meeting with Dawood Ibrahim was set up by a colleague of mine, Sheila Bhatt, who is a well-known Gujarati journalist but now works for rediff.com. And I did go to Dubai to meet him without the promise of an interview. He said that we will see and I will then decide. And before that, he and I had a conversation on the phone, and I can pretty much put a date to it. That was during a World Cup in Australia, Cricket World Cup, Australia, New Zealand, and India had lost to West Indies that morning. And Dawood said to me, कितना अफसोस हो रहा है, इंडिया हार गया, हम तो देशभक्त हैं, हमेशा इंडिया पर शर्त लगाते हैं, और वो भी वेस्ट इंडीज से हार गया. But that was the day when I was having a conversation with him about Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister abolishing controls on gold. And we thought this was going to finish Dawood Ibrahim's business. And he said, oh, this should have been done a long time back. I don't even see gold business as smuggling. It is smuggling in India, but where I live, it is not smuggling. So we had the background of that conversation. So when I went to see him this time, Bombay blasts had taken place and suspicion was already rising that Dawood Ibrahim and his group were behind it. So he was very careful. I met him in his building in Dubai. His brother was there also, and he kept on saying, don't tell anybody that you met me today. If I have to give an interview, I will invite you. You land at Dubai airport, a car will fetch you from the plane itself. You'll be treated like royalty. You will be my guest and you will do your interview, and you can also go out shopping at my expense. Right? But I was desperate to get an on-the-record interview, but he wasn't willing to do that. So when I was leaving, he said to me, देखो भाई, जाके किसी को बताना नहीं कि मुझे मिले थे. See, his worry was that his host in Dubai will be embarrassed. So जाके किसी को बताना नहीं मेरे से मिले थे क्योंकि अच्छा नहीं होगा. And I think at that point it felt to me like temperature had dropped to minus 30 degrees. And I think it must have been 12:30 or 1 Dubai time. Which means about 2 or 3 Delhi in India time. And as I walked out, I found that morning's Times of India late city edition was sitting on his coffee table. So, he was keeping very current with what was going on in India. So those are the impressions I have. I wish, however, that he had come on record. I wish, however, that even now he'll come on record. It's not love or hate. For a long time, I was suspicious of Twitter. I was suspicious and I was concerned about Twitter and social media. That's because, and later I analyzed it, partly it was because social media gives you a sense of freedom which is way beyond the kind of parameters of laws and decency, laws of sort of the law book as well as general conduct that we have confined ourselves to. But second, also I discovered that social media, particularly Twitter, provides a handle, I'm sorry, I'm using that word, provides a handle to those who want to be anonymous. And I think anonymity brings out the worst in human beings. So I was abused often by somebody who called himself Kala Kutta, Bhigi Billy, Choti Mooch, Badi Dadi, right? So sometimes you wondered whether this was a serious enough medium. And then one day, a friend of mine, Farid Zakaria, said to me, because he's a very serious writer and he's on Twitter, and I said, how do you manage this wild medium? And he said, look, time has now come for all of us to learn to take our audiences with us. So following that, and a colleague of mine, Rahul Kamal, and a friend of mine, Amit Prabhu, in PR, they on their own set up a Twitter handle for me and forced me into it in a way. But I think since I got onto Twitter about 3 months back, I haven't quite minded it. I haven't gotten to love it or to get obsessive with it, but I find it a very useful tool to intervene in a debate very quickly, also to find a wider audience of what you're doing, and frankly, as Farid Zakaria said to me, to keep your audiences together with you, because now everyone has to do community building, and there is no more virtuous a community than that of your readers and audiences. Well, I think journalist media has become very powerful over the years, because executive was very weak under Dr. Manmohan Singh. Other institutions moved into that space because politics abhors a vacuum. So judiciary got overly powerful, civil society, the NGOs got overly powerful, and frankly the media got overly powerful. So as a result, a lot of the people in India no longer see the media as outsiders. They've now begun to see media as part of the establishment. And they say, you guys can't say you don't have the power. Don't say that you can't change anything because you don't have the power, because you pretend to be having a lot more power than the rest. So I think the fault for this lies also with us journalists. We've started to take ourselves too seriously, and we've also started to flaunt too much power, particularly on visual media.